What if you want to change the way a list view or grid view displays its data because of a view state change? It's simple. All you do is change the data template. You just swap out that property with a different data template, and the whole thing lays out differently. In our sample, we're going to create two separate data template resources. We'll switch between them based on the view state. I've created a new blank project named Authors, and I'm going to display information about multiple app dev authors. If I come in here, I'm going to need some images. So I'll create a new folder called Images. And I'll need to get some images into that folder. I've already laid them out here. And I have images of authors as well as images of animals. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. But in any case, I'll drag all of these to the Images folder. And now we'll have 5 author images here in the Images folder. In addition, I need all the layout-aware stuff, and I'm not going to get it from the basic blank page template that I have here. There's nothing here dealing with view states or anything. So I need to remove this and add a new page, a new basic page named mainpage.xaml. There's basic page. Let me add it, mainpage.xaml. It asks me if I want to add the extra files, and I'll say yes. It complained because we haven't compiled the code yet, so let me compile everything. And back to our markup, it stops complaining, and now we can see down here we do have the visual state group element with the visual states sort of filled out, just handling the title and the button styles. To get started, I'm going to need a class to provide the data for a list view. So I'll go to my project and add a new class named Author Data Source. And in here, I'm going to paste in some code that I've already written. Here's my class Author Data Source. It's very, very simple. Here we go. An Author Data Source is a class that has internally a list of author objects, and it returns that collection back in its items property. There's an author data source constructor that automatically adds 5 authors' information to the internal collection called items. There is a public class called author, which has a name, a description, and image path. In its constructor, you can pass those 3 things in, and it has a toString method which provides the name of the author. Not very complicated data source here. We'll need a little bit of markup to lay out our data template, so I'll go back to mainpage.xaml, and let's add a resource. We do have resources. Okay, well, we do have a resource. We're going to add to that resource. Let's go get the code for this. I'm just going to add my data template. And I probably should change this to read authors or something more convincing than my application. And here we have a template. It's a data template element. Its name is author template. It contains a stack panel, horizontal, which will display an image and a text block. The text block will have its tag bound to the name property and its text bound to the description property. We'll discuss more about the tag later on. Here in the source for the image, we'll use the image path property, which will point us at the image for each author. At some point, we need to set the data source of the page to be the author data source. So let me do that in the onNavigated to method of this page. we should find an onNavigated_to method. Well, it's not here. We're going to have to add it ourselves. Let's go get the onNavigated_to. There's no point doing this until this page gets navigated to. We'll set the page's data context to be a new instance of the author data source class so that it will fill in the author data and bind everything on the page to that data source. Let's save it and compile it, make sure we haven't messed up anything yet. All right, back in our markup, I need to do some cleanup. In the grid, I want to remove all the existing content. Oops, this grid. There we go. I'll leave my Visual State Manager stuff. I don't need any more of that resource, which I just carefully changed to be authors. Obviously, we're not displaying that anymore. And down here, I want to get rid of the snapped content that's here, and also the existing full screen portrait content. Those things refer to controls that no longer exist. Inside the grid, let me add some markup. We have an empty grid waiting to go. Let's go get the right markup, which is going to be adding some content. Here we go. What does the grid have within it now? It has a couple of rows. It has a column, which is the whole width. I'm not sure why I did that. Anyway, I have a text block with the text, "Who is your favorite app dev expert?" And its style is set to the built-in style subheader text style. We have a list view named author list view, and you can see that its item template is the author template that we already created, and its item source is the item's property of whatever is the data source for the page. The data source for the page is the author data source, and so this should get the items collection and bind our list view to it. At the bottom of the page, in grid row 2, centered, I have a text block named selected text block, and its text will be coming from the selected value of the author list view. Now, the selected value is going to be an author. If I didn't have a toString method in the author class, it would just display the class name. But because we have a toString method override, it will call that method and display whatever we told it to display. And in this case, that is the name of the author. All right, we have a style for that bottom element. That's all we need. And of course, we have these visual state groups, which we haven't filled in anything for yet. Let's save and run it to see the basic operation. You see our list view displaying an image and a description of each author. And when I select one, at the bottom of the screen, we've bound that text block to the selected value in the list view, so it displays the currently selected item. We're almost done. I'd like this text block at the bottom to display a little more text. So let me go back out and modify our code so that it does that. Here we're going to need to add a converter that will convert from the author name into the actual text I want to see down there. So in our Solution Explorer, I'm going to add a new class, and I'll call this author converter. An author converter is going to take in the author name and return a longer string. I need to modify the class so that it inherits from iValueConverter. And of course, I don't see that here, so I will need to right-click and resolve that. There we are. And now I should be able to implement it by choosing the data tip, implement the interface, and we find a convert and a convert back method. I don't ever want to call the convert back. That'll never happen. But I do need to replace the convert method with the correct code I'll go get that from my text file. It's very simple. You're going to hand me in the value parameter an author. So I'll take value, cast it as author. If it's not null, return back the text you selected : and author.name. We'll return that return value. It's just giving us a little more information in that text block at the bottom. Now we need to go back to our main page and add that converter to the binding for the text block. And actually, this is pretty easy. I can go to the Properties window, find the text property, go to Create Data Binding, and it knows that we're getting it from Author List View, that we're getting the selected value property. We need a converter. There's not one created yet. We need to create an instance of that converter. So I'll create an instance of, I guess I need to compile the code first, huh? Let's go compile the code. Man. So picky. Let's go back out and try again. Text block here, properties window, bring up the text property. There it is. Here, data binding, that's fine. Converter, there's not one yet. We'll add a converter. And there it is. Author converter is now available to us as a converter. We could pass a parameter. Our converter doesn't need a parameter. I click OK, and it creates a static resource named author converter, and it's up here somewhere defined. There it is. We have an instance of the author converter class. We'll refer to it as author converter in our code. So we have our converter hooked up, and now if I run it again, and choose someone, it says you selected : and the name of the author. Now let's try this in the simulator so we can run it in different view states. We stop debugging, change this to use the simulator instead of the local machine, run it again. That brings it up in the simulator. We left the simulator in portrait view, and this seems to work fine. Let's put it back in landscape view. And full screen works fine. Let's try it in other modes. There's filled mode. That looks fine. Let's try it in snapped mode. Not so good. Really can't read the text here. Can't even really guarantee that we'll fit the you selected at the bottom of the screen. So we obviously need to do a little bit of work to get this application to work correctly in snapped mode. We've already created, actually we haven't. I haven't yet created the second template. So let's add a different data template for our authors. I've already created it, of course. Let's go over here, get a different data template, and see what's different about it. First of all, its name is narrow author template. We have a vertical stack panel. We have our image. We have our text block. And I think the only difference is really that it's vertical and the text alignment is justified. So let's go down and use that template instead and see what it looks like. So here we've specified author template. Let's specify narrow author template. Let's run the app. Now remember, we haven't specified anything dealing with different view states yet. So this is going to be used in every view state. Awfully big, but it does show it in a vertical mode. There we go. There's our text. Image is way too big. And the text below. But let's try the same thing in snap mode. Here we go. Oh, and that looks actually pretty good. It's like little baseball trading cards about the authors. So that template works great in snapped mode. It just doesn't look good in any other view. So we're going to need to somehow indicate that we only want to use that template when we're in the snapped view. It's easy to do. Let's stop running. Go back over here. So clearly we need to do some change down here in the snapped view, and we need to put this back as the normal author template. What we need to do down here is add the necessary markup to change the template to the narrow author template when we're in the snapped view. So let's go get that markup. Isn't that a lot of markup just to change that one property? Maybe I changed more than one. Oh, I did. And what did I do wrong? Obviously, I have the wrong stuff pasted in. Let's go look. Oh, this is the whole element, including the visual state. So I need to replace this visual state with the new code. And look what we did. This is going to change the title text block's text property from who is your favorite app dev expert to pick an expert. Make it fit in the narrower space. For the author list view, we'll change the item template to be a static resource of narrow author template. For the selected text block, we'll change the style from its current style to item text style, another built-in style, so it'll fit in the space we have allotted. Well, we've changed everything we need to change. Let's give it a try. So now we're back to having it look decent in full screen landscape view. Let's open it up in filled view, and we didn't change anything. Let's take it out now to snapped view, and you can see we changed the title, we changed the layout to the narrow author template, and we changed the font down here so it's very small, so it's guaranteed to fit within the space we have. If we go to portrait mode, you know nothing will change. We'll be back to the standard layout, which is this. So as you can see, by changing the view state, we're changing the template for this list view so it fits the space we have available better.